Good morning. Welcome to First Parish in Needham, a Unitarian Universalist congregation of humanists, theists, atheists, agnostics, and interfaith families. I'm Peter Panov and use he, him pronouns. You can learn more about all that's happening at First Parish by going to our website, uneedham.org, signing up for our weekly email newsletter, following us on social media, and so forth. Our order of service is online too, at the QR code in your pews, and at the website uuneedham.updates.church. Please speak with our ushers, greeters, and Zoom hosts if you have questions or accessibility needs. This morning's service and many past and future services are available on YouTube and at our First Parish in Needham channel specifically. Here at First Parish, we covenant to live out our shared values of the inherent worth and dignity of every person, respecting the earth, and co-creating beloved community. Whoever you are, whoever you love, whatever your background or identity, whatever your age or stage, whether you walked or rolled in, and whether you're participating from here or online, you are welcome here. I am a member of the Strategic Task Force and of the Worship Committee. I'm speaking for both this morning. I just wiped out my script. That's unfortunate. That's very frustrating. I'm so sorry. So, first, it is my great pleasure to introduce our guest minister today, Reverend Natalie Milter, who is a UU minister, who is a UU minister and doctoral student in the study of religion at Harvard University. Her research focuses on 20th century American religious history and the relationship between religion and women's rights movements. She served on the editorial board of A Documentary History of Unitarian Universalism and is passionate about the ways in which UU history shapes our present and our future. She also serves as the Unitarian Universalist Affiliate Chaplain in the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life at Wellesley College, where she mentors college students and supports young adult faith formation. That's where my script went. So, I'd also like to share an update from the Strategic Task Force. The Strategic Task Force was asked last year to come up with recommendations for the parish committee, for the parish, for a long-term plan for how our church needs to grow and change to grow and grow to change, as it were. We've held lessoning sessions, interviewed a sample of members, and considered all that we heard. We've gotten a sense of where we are as a congregation. The questions we're working on now are, where do we need to go? How do we get there? To help foster organic and natural change in the church, we're looking to encourage an attitude of innovation where any and all of us can contribute energy and ideas in support of the caring, affirming, and enriching environment here at First Parish. And kicking this off, the task force is hosting a bagels and brainstorming session next Sunday, October 15th at 9:30 in the morning in the parlor downstairs. A continental breakfast will be provided to fuel your participation and fun exchange of ideas. Please join if you can. Childcare will be provided. So, welcome again to everyone here in the building and online. We're so glad you're here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Peter, for that introduction. As he said, my name is Reverend Natalie Malter. I use she, her pronouns, and it's a joy to be here with you all on this gorgeous autumn morning. Our chalice lighting words this morning come from the Reverend Amy Brooks, who writes, "Even as the days grow shorter and our wicks burn lower, and our will to endure flickers, we light this chalice to kindle a flame of warmth as a reminder of the connection that draws us in to a community that opens us up in gratitude for the breath in our lungs and the love in our hearts for the gift of this day alive. I now want to invite you to join me in our opening hymn. It's number 361, and the lyrics are printed in your order of service, and in the gray hymnal, number 361, excuse me. Please stand as you're willing or able. Thank you.
In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the covenant is a set of promises the membership of a congregation strives to honor with one another and out in the world. Though not everyone is here with us in person during these times, we strive to live these promises every day. Please say along with me, from here in the sanctuary, from home, from wherever you are, the words of our parish covenant as shown on your screen. We gather as a loving community to encourage and comfort one another. We gather as a diverse community to support each other in our search for spiritual truth. We gather as a service community to live our beliefs through action and care for our world.
What shall we build, you and I? Let's gather all our tools for a start. For putting together and taking apart. Let's build a door where there was none. We'll build a house to be our home. I'll build your future and you'll build mine. We'll build a watch to keep our time. We'll build some love to set aside and build a hole where we can hide. A fortress to keep our enemies out and higher walls for when they shout. But you don't always lose. And you don't always win. So we'll build a gate to let them in. We'll build a table to drink our tea and say, I'm sorry. Me too. Me three. We'll build a tower to watch the sky and other worlds that pass us by. Let's build a tunnel to anywhere. Let's build a road up to the moon. Let's build a comfy place to rest, for we'll be tired soon. Let's build a boat that can't be broken, that will not sink or be cracked open. place to stay when all is lost, to keep the things we love the most. We'll put these favorite things beside the earlier love we set aside. I think that we may want them later, when times are hard and needs are greater. But first things first, let's build a fire, for we've planned a lot and now we're tired. It'll keep us warm like when we're born. Then we'll say goodnight as all's all right. These are the things we'll build, you and I.
This is the time in our service when we share the milestones, joys, and concerns dear to our hearts and light a candle. Our pastoral care associate this week is Amy Chikala. And as all our services live stream on YouTube, we cannot guarantee that your milestones will stay within the parish community. You're always welcome to reach out to Reverend Katie Scudera, Mayor Bryans, or the pastoral care associate of the week, Amy Chikala, to share more privately. I don't have our pre-submitted candles, unfortunately, this morning. Perhaps any that were shared this week will come into next Sunday's service. But I will light a candle for the disastrous news coming out of Israel and Palestine yesterday, and I'm sure today. I am deeply affected, and I'm sure many of us are, by some of the terrible things that are happening, violence and more violence. And I will light a candle to hold everyone who is suffering, everyone who is being hurt by the situation in the world there, to keep them in our hearts. Thank you. Oh, and again, my name is Peter Panov, he, him.
You normally hear me every Sunday, though, on piano or singing, but I think it's also worth pointing out, along with the terrible news out of the Israel-Palestine, the very sad exodus of 100,000 people from Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh, and this also, both these unfortunately fit historical patterns in certain ways, and it's sad, and let's keep people there in our hearts too, and perhaps we can find other ways to contribute to peace in the world too.
Morning, I'm Wendy Blum. I'm lighting a candle in sorrow for the passing of Clark Taylor, our longtime friend and congregation member who was truly a shining light in so many ways.
Good morning. I'm Tom Gaiman, and Muriel and I are celebrating the birth of our first grandson, Everett Lucas Gaiman. This Wednesday, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, and not getting a lot of sleep, but love to see him online, and next month we go out to hold him ourselves.
Good morning. I'm Becky Kennedy. Thank you. And, as we grapple with the grief and the terror and the worries of our world, we also have other parts of what it means to have life. And Tom just shared a piece of that sort of celebration. And I just wanted to say that there are to that point of having hope in all of this midst of grief. We are, in our family, celebrating 3 babies that have been born within the last couple of months, and 2 within the last week. We have our grandson, Fletcher, and then cousin's grandson, Ronan, and another cousin's granddaughter, Sky. And so, life is mysterious, and there's a push and a pull and a balance, and it's confusing at times, but we need to be mindful of what is good, because that strengthens us to handle the rest. At least I'd like to think so.
And I will light. Oh. Yes, and I will light one final candle for all the joys and sorrows that we continue to carry in our hearts.
I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and of love, God of many names and of no name at all. We come to you on this New England fall morning, hearts full of the many joys and sorrows that shape our lives, of all those things that we have shouted aloud at the top of our lungs, and of those things that have remained tucked away in the quietest corners of our hearts. We remain on this Sunday morning, as we so often find ourselves, overwhelmed by the suffering and pain in our world, and also delighted by the tiny, beautiful things that persist. The warm hugs from old friends, the hot cups of tea on a fall morning, the leaves as they begin to turn to golden hues of orange, yellow, and red. In spite of all that has been broken, we find ourselves deeply moved by all that might yet be saved, by the still shocking beauty of our one precious and hurting world. Spirit of life, as we move into the days and weeks ahead, grant us the serenity that we might be patient with the messiness and uncertainty that surrounds us. Grant us the courage that we might be instruments of healing and of connection amidst the suffering in our world. And grant us the wisdom that we might treat one another and ourselves with compassion as we continue to learn how to love each other and the world of which we are a part ever more deeply. I now invite you to enter into a moment of silence as we hold all the joys and concerns that have been shared this morning. I now invite you to remain seated for our responsive hymn. It's number 123 in your gray hymnal, and the words are printed in your order of service, Spirit of Life.
Okay, so this month, our collection plate is shared equally between First Parish and the Metro West Worker Center. The Metro West Worker Center is an immigrant worker-led organization that defends and expands the labor, civil, and human rights of all workers. I personally remember them through the Immigration Justice Task Force. And the connection there. And you know, there are many ways to give to today's plate collection, whether in person to the bowls passed around, or as you will see instructions on the screen digitally, or as instructed in your order of service for that matter. However you give, you may want to remember to indicate whether you're giving for the plate collection or for your annual contribution. Make sure to call that out if you're doing the latter. Thank you.
Go drifting Let's go sailing on the sea. Let's go dancing on the juke joint floor and leave our troubles all behind and have a party so easily forgotten are the most important things, like the melody and the moonlight in your eyes, and a song that lasts forever, keeps on getting better all the time. 'Cause life is beautiful, life is wondrous, every star above is shining just for us. Life is beautiful on a stormy night. Somewhere in the world the sun is shining bright. I get crazy, so afraid that I might lose you one fine day, and I'll be nothing but a tired old man. And I don't want to be without you at the party, so easily forgotten. The most important thing is that I love you, I do. And I want to spend my days and nights walking through this crazy world with you. Life is beautiful, life is wondrous, every star above is shining just for us. Life is beautiful on a stormy night. Somewhere in the world the sun is shining bright. So easily forgotten, the most important thing is that I love you, I do. And I want to spend my days and nights walking through this crazy world with you. That's right, babe. Life is beautiful, life is wondrous, every star above is shining just for us. Life is beautiful on a stormy night. Somewhere in the world the sun is shining bright.
Wow, thank you so much, David and Wendy. That was beautiful. And an important reminder to all of us that life is beautiful. So today, this morning, I want to begin by inviting you to imagine a very common scenario for most of us. I want you to picture yourself in your most recent public transit experience. You may be imagining yourself on an MBTA bus or commuter rail, maybe on our beloved, if fire-prone T, taking a train into the city to meet friends or coworkers. Or maybe you see yourself in a taxi or a ride share on your way to an appointment or to the airport. Speaking of airports, maybe you're imagining yourself boarding a flight at Boston Logan, scanning the aisles of the plane for your assigned seat, while silently praying to whatever God you may believe in that there will be sufficient overhead bin space to stow your carry-on bag. Whatever your chosen scenario, can you picture it? Do you see yourself catching this plane, train, or automobile, embarking on a shared transit experience alongside total strangers, brought together solely by the common need to get from point A to point B? Now, friends, how is your heart rate doing? Did the mere mention of total strangers on transit provoke a sense of stress, anxiety, or panic? Is the thought causing you to instinctively reach for your phone or your book in an attempt to avoid any and all unnecessary social interaction with random people? Believe me when I say, I understand. As a young woman, I not infrequently find myself wary of these kinds of interactions, in particular when traveling alone in the early or late hours of the day. Public transit or group transit can be dangerous for a whole variety of people, including women, people of color, folks in mental health crises, and certainly harassment and violence do occur in these spaces. Personally, though, when I board a train or a bus or a plane, I'm often tired and in a hurry to get to wherever it is I'm going. Other humans are notoriously messy, both metaphorically and literally, and minimizing encounters with them often seems like the most prudent decision. But despite my own wariness, several recent interactions with strangers on public transit have reminded me of the good that can occur when we remain open to encountering other people. For example, there was a time a few weeks back when I was riding in a taxi and had a lovely conversation with my taxi driver about our shared love of fall in New England. We talked about our favorite places to pick apples and the best spots in the city to appreciate the changing leaves. I left that cab ride with a new recommendation for where to buy the alleged best cider donuts, and with a pleasantly surprising appreciation for the friendly and casual conversation, bonding over simple seasonal pleasures with a stranger. Then there was an admittedly more chaotic transit experience a few months back when I found myself in a very different scenario on the New York City subway, traveling to a friend's apartment with 3 very full bags of groceries from Trader Joe's. Now, those who had the harrowing opportunity to shop for groceries in Manhattan will already be alarmed by my admission that I was toggling 3 very full bags, flimsy paper bags, I should say, of groceries on a crowded subway. Like the true tourist I am, I had forgotten my local friend's admonition to bring a large backpack to the grocery store so that I could be spared from the logistical nightmare of navigating one of the busiest train lines while juggling bananas and cereal in my arms. But there I was, in all my foolish glory, embarking on an unnecessarily arduous task, too late to turn around and make a different choice. As I boarded the crowded train in Manhattan, heading into Midtown, the looks on the eyes of the locals I encountered ranged from bemusement to pity to understandable irritation, particularly when, only moments after stepping into the train car, one of the paper bags I was carrying began to rip, under what I can only imagine was the weight of my gala apples and my own deepening humiliation. It was in that moment, while frantically chasing a rogue apple that had escaped my bag and rolled down the aisle of the train car, that I met my subway angel. In a moment when all I desperately wanted was to become completely invisible to the people around me, a woman about my age smiled at me, made eye contact, and looked sympathetic. "Can I help you?" she asked. If she was secretly judging me, she was doing an excellent job of hiding it, because her question was simple and direct, and it felt incredibly genuine. "Yes, please," I quickly replied, and she picked up the apple, which had rolled to her feet. "The train can get so crowded this time of day," she remarked, as she handed me my apple. "Please, take my seat so you can sit down with your bags." While normally I would be very reluctant to displace someone from their seat, in that moment of desperation, I did not hesitate. "Thank you so much," I told her. "You saved me today." She simply smiled and nodded before getting off a few stops later. The interaction was brief, and I never learned her name, but I still think about her kindness when I'm on the train and see someone who needs a hand. Finally, one of my most recent and memorable interactions in transit occurred while sitting on a 6-hour cross-country plane flight a few weeks ago. I was returning from visiting a loved one who's battling a terrible illness, And while the trip had been special, as I boarded the plane, I felt myself exhausted and tired. As I found my way to my middle seat, my heart sank a little when I saw that there were two older, amiable-looking women sitting on either side of me. My first admittedly ungenerous thought was, oh no, these women look like talkers. So, after a brief hello, I quickly pulled out my headphones, hoping desperately to avoid extraneous conversation that I was certain I did not have the capacity for. I buckled my seatbelt, I selected a podcast, and I closed my eyes. A few hours, though, into the flight, and several podcasts later, I started to become restless, and I reached into my backpack and pulled out origami paper. Sitting there, I began folding paper cranes on top of my tray table in all different rainbow hues. You see, following my loved one's diagnosis, her family and friends began folding cranes in her honor, inspired by the beautiful Japanese tradition in which people fold 1,000 paper cranes as a wish for the healing of someone who's ill. Many of us had been folding paper cranes all summer long, and I had come to find the practice deeply soothing and meditative. So in that moment, it didn't strike me as at all odd that I would be folding paper cranes on the plane. But soon into the process, I became self-consciously aware that this might not be the most common plane activity, and that it might invite unwanted commentary from my so far very pleasantly quiet seatmates. And you know what? It did. And it turned out that the unwanted commentary was actually not so unwanted after all. In fact, I ended up having a very moving conversation with Lori, the 80-year-old woman sitting in the window seat beside me. She inquired about my cranes, and so I told her why I was making them. My loved one is sick, I said, cancer. The sadness and empathy in Lori's eyes told me that my pain was all too familiar to her. I'm so sorry to hear that, she said. A few years ago, I lost my best friend to cancer, and it was a kind of grief I had never experienced before. We exchanged knowing glances, empathizing with each other for a few minutes before we returned to our respective activities, her to her book, and I to my folding, passing the rest of the flight in comfortable and companionable silence. It was a short but still deep exchange with someone who I had never met, but who, for a few moments, made me feel less alone as we flew thousands of miles in the air, making our way on different journeys. Maybe middle seats aren't so bad after all, I thought as I disembarked the plane. I would probably never see Lori again, but my memory of our conversation will stay with me for years to come. Whether discussing the best cider donuts, being helped by a stranger on a crowded train, or having a deeper acknowledgement of our shared experiences of heartache, these informal interactions I had in a subway, a taxi, and a plane pulled me out of my own feelings of isolation for a few moments and offered me a sense of recognition and belonging in something greater than myself. Despite the ephemeral nature of these encounters, each in their own way reminded me of a valuable lesson. We do not have to go alone. The importance of these kinds of positive and casual social encounters have actually been studied by doctors Robert Waldinger and Mark Schultz, Harvard psychologists who run the Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the most extensive longitudinal psychological studies that's ever been undertaken. Since 1938, the study has surveyed thousands of individuals across 3 generations of families to try to understand the way long-term adversity and success shape the landscape of people's overall happiness and well-being. In the course of their research, Waldinger and Schultz found that certain indicators like a livable income and stable housing have a significant impact on people's happiness. But in addition to the impact of economic inequity, Waldinger and Schultz found another central factor in determining happiness: relationships. Feeling connected to other people over the course of a lifetime was a huge predictor of longevity and self-reported contentedness. Whether connecting with family, friends, or coworkers, or even strangers on a train, positive and friendly social interaction helps counteract existential feelings of loneliness and isolation. In their recent book entitled The Good Life: Lessons from the World's Longest Scientific Study of Happiness, Waldinger and Schultz explain that even seemingly insignificant and fleeting connections can improve our overall sense of well-being. They cite a study conducted by researchers at the University of Chicago that followed a group of commuters on a train. Prior to the experiment, the researchers asked participants to predict whether they would have a better commute if they talked to a stranger or if they kept to themselves. The vast majority of participants predicted that their rides would be vastly more enjoyable if they remained disengaged from others. After that initial survey, 1/2 of the participants were instructed to interact with a fellow traveler while commuting, while the other half were instructed to keep to themselves. Now, at this point, you might be able to guess what happened. The group of participants who were instructed to have a brief conversation with a fellow traveler reported having better than average commute experiences, even though those same people began with the assumption that the conversations would make them less happy. In their interpretation of this study, Waldinger and Schultz write the following: human beings are particularly bad at forecasting the benefits of relationships. A big part of this is the obvious fact that relationships can be messy and unpredictable. The messiness is what prompts many of us to prefer being alone. It's not just that we're seeking solitude, it's that we want to avoid the potential mess of connecting with others. But we tend to overestimate that mess and underestimate the benefits of human connection. One of those great benefits is mitigating loneliness. As human beings, we all experience feelings of loneliness from time to time. However, these days, the number of people who report chronic and sustained loneliness is skyrocketing. A recent study of 55,000 respondents from around the world found that 1 out of every 3 people of all ages often feel lonely. This kind of entrenched loneliness has been found by scientists and medical professionals alike to have all kinds of negative long-term health effects, ranging from poor sleep to a weakened immune system, to mental health crises and cardiovascular problems. In its 2023 study published by the US Surgeon General's office entitled Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation, Dr. Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, wrote that loneliness is one of the great threats to public health in our time. I encounter the impact of loneliness in my work as a chaplain at the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life at Wellesley College. Whether in small group gatherings or in one-on-one conversations, I regularly hear students' fears that they don't have enough close friends who they can really confide in and trust. These brilliant, creative, talented, kind, and thoughtful 18 to 22-year-olds are so worried about finding their people, the ones who will truly love and accept them for who they are as they establish their lives away from their families for the first time. Students yearn for this kind of connection and belonging more than almost anything else in college, even when they say they are mostly stressed about doing well in their classes. It's scary, they confide in me, having to put themselves out there over and over again, uncertain whether another person will accept their bid for friendship or leave them feeling rejected and insecure. When I hear my students speaking so openly about their own loneliness, I think about just how common that experience is at any age, not only on college campuses, but throughout our society. Regardless of how old you are, taking the risk to be seen and the subsequent risk to be rejected is scary. Many of us avoid relationships of any kind, romantic, friendship, or otherwise, because of the fear of dealing with that unpredictable reality. But the risks of never reaching out and never connecting are ultimately far greater than the risk of momentary rejection or even loss. Because never reaching out can result in a dangerous form of isolation. And the truth is that we need one another more than most of us will ever acknowledge. From time to time, we really need important reminders to stretch ourselves to connect, both to feed our long-term relationships and to remind us to work to establish new ones. We all need to summon the courage to take healthy risks to connect in order to feed our hearts, our bodies, and our spirits. Much like college chaplaincy, church is largely about community, about coming together to worship, to celebrate, to mourn, to wonder, and to connect. Churches serve as major connectors in our lives, bringing us into all kinds of relationships with people we may not have met had we not walked through the front doors. Sometimes in churches, we meet lifelong best friends, and other times we simply smile and chat briefly with one another in coffee hour. But either way, both kinds of relationships can bring meaning, contentedness, and joy into our lives. Now, church, like all communities, can be undeniably complicated at times and can require time and energy to sustain. In church community, we must reckon with our own limitations, acknowledging times when we fall short of our values and hurt or disappoint those we care about. Church usually works best when its members are committed to that process of accountability and repair, of learning and growing in relationship to one another. While building this kind of beloved community is a lot of work, it can also be extremely life-giving, a balm for loneliness in an otherwise chronically isolated world. It can remind us that we do not have to go through the joys and challenges of life alone. And that, my friends, is what I hope you may take away from our time together this morning. You do not go alone. It's a simple message, but one that's all too easy to forget. Each week at Wellesley in our small group ministry, we gather together in a circle and sing a song that reminds us of our connections to one another. The song is called Courage, and it comes out of the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. The words we sing at Wellesley go like this. Courage, my friends, you do not go alone. We will go with you and sing your journey home. We sing this song to one another each week at Wellesley to remind ourselves what we most need to know. You may feel lonely, but you are not alone. Reach out to one another. Risk being known. Let yourself love and be loved. You are so precious and so worthy of it. Courage, my friends. You do not go alone. May it be so. Amen.
we always extinguish our chalice with words from... I can remember the words, but not the name. From Reverend Elizabeth Selly-Jones. But first, I have a couple of quick updates and reminders. So the Grief and Loss Support Group will be meeting today at 12:30 in about an hour. We have a discussion of the UU World article on predicting the future on Tuesday at 7:23 in the evening. As I previously mentioned, the Strategic Task Force will be holding the Bagels and Brainstorming event next Sunday in the morning. Of course, I should mention that the church will be hosting a celebration of life for Clark Taylor the day before, October 14th. I've also been asked to remind people that we will be hosting the Coffee House, the concert series, and wow, apologies. Homegrown Coffee House will be taking place in Parish Hall on October 14th, again next Saturday at 8 in the evening, and we will be hosting Antje Duvicot, a musician who I have heard good things about. I hope many of you will come. And that's all it for announcements. So I will say and invite you to join with me the words of Reverend Elizabeth Selly-Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I would like to invite you to rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn. It's number 131 in your gray hymnal. The words are printed in your order of service. Love will guide us. Go forth from this sacred time and place, drawing courage and strength from this community. whose love follows you wherever you go. Go forth from this time together, remembering that you are already beloved, already holy, and already whole, and that you do not go alone. Our service begins as our service ends. Go in peace, practice love. Amen.